What is going on, Stock Card Fiends? Hopefully you guys are having a wonderful day. And today I want to talk about why I am buying soccer grails during a down market. Typically, during a down market, that's when you're not going to be as inclined to maybe buy some better things. But for me personally, I've done quite the opposite. I've made a ton of content the last couple months because I don't want to contribute to a possible pump then dump at the World Cup. But I do want to get back into making a lot more content because just looking around the hobby is extremely negative, and me personally, I am not, generally speaking. I do see it and it does affect me, but at the same time, I do understand that you got to get through that. And today we'll talk about how I've been getting through that and how I haven't really changed any of my approach despite what the greater market is seeing. So as far as the premise for why am I buying grails, we'll just get into the beginning part of it, which is a down market equals more buying power. There are cards now that, whenever the market peaked, I actually had thought at that time, I'm never going to be able to buy these. Now, maybe in really low grade, I could have done it, but realistically, I wasn't going to be buying any of those. And now, in this market, I have the opportunity to do that. So I have a lot more buying power. And if you're someone that enjoys the hobby, that's a good thing, because then you can build up your collection. If you're someone that doesn't enjoy the hobby and you just want to sell your cards for money, well, then that's bad. And obviously, that's detrimental. But for me, that's a good thing. And so I will take advantage of that. As a collector, the market can work both ways. When the market's up, it's great because your collection's doing well, but when the market's down, obviously your collection's not doing as good, but you can then improve. So really, you have to let it work for you one way or the other, and you just got to go with where the market's going in that sense. Now, if you wanted to leave, I did weigh this out, at least for myself, and I think other people should do this too. Just make a simple chart and just put how you would feel on there, right? So what I did was, say I leave and the market recovers or the market flops. How do I feel? Well, if the market recovers, I feel really bad because I believe holistically in soccer cards. I love cards in general, so I would probably likely be in other scenarios where I have cards and then I'd see soccer cards still doing really well, and I'd be really salty if I'm being honest. If the market flopped, I'd be moderately happy because, well, I avoided something negative. Ultimately, nothing really good happened to me, so I'm not going to be overly optimistic or overly happy, but I guess I would be happy that I didn't get hurt, right? Now, if I stay and the market recovers, I feel really, really good because, I feel great about soccer cards as is. I love this, so that would just be an amazing feeling, right? Now, if I stay and the market flops, well, I'll be sad, right? But at the end of the day, you can flop in other aspects of life, and just because you flop doesn't mean you're over. Like, it's not everything, right? This isn't everything, and it shouldn't be. But net, when I look at this, personally, the stay category looks much better. 3 smiley faces, 1 frown, compared to the leaving, which is 3 frowns, 1 smiley, right? Now, you can weigh that however you want. You can look at it however you want. But for me, staying makes a lot more sense than leaving. And if I believe in the market and I do want to stay in the market, well, then right now is the time to act, at least in my opinion, relative to the last year and a half. So now we'll get into the reasons as far as why I am buying grails during this time, how I justify that to myself, right? So the first of many points as to why I'm still buying grails in this market, one is that I love this. As far as soccer cards go, I love this type of thing. And I'll explain to you as far as how I got to this point in my life to which I like this, right? So first off, I played old school RuneScape basically my whole life. It used to be regular RuneScape back in the day, but I love RuneScape. In the game of RuneScape, it's an online game where there's tons of items and all this stuff, and there's a marketplace where you buy, sell, and trade it. Well, I guess not as much trade, but buy and sell. And so I would always play this game, and to help fund my bank and help get bigger and better things, I would always buy and sell stuff through this exchange, make a little bit of money, buy this, hold this for a certain amount of time, maybe speculate on this. Tons of fun stuff. And with that money that I made through that, then I could build up my bank, get better items, do other things, right? And so this is very much like collecting in a sense, but there's more utility behind these items. So there is a little bit of a difference, but ultimately it very much introduced me to that type of stuff and got me into it and just really obsessed with it, to be honest. Beyond that, trading card games as a kid, I played a little bit of Yu-Gi-Oh! And I also collected Pokemon. That wasn't a massive part of my life like these other 2 things that you'll see here in a second are, but it was a good, entry point into cards and really what got me into this. So that also plays a role. And then third, FIFA Ultimate Team. So with my love of markets and old school RuneScape and all that stuff, whenever I went to FIFA and played Ultimate Team, there's a market there where you can buy and sell players, and it's very much like cards, but then you get to use them in game. And, after doing that for 5-10 years, at some point you just kind of get bored of the rerun every single year and having to redo it all. But collectively, these three things are what have brought me here, right? I didn't just wind up here. I didn't just, find a Gary Vee video one day that said, oh, I'm holding this, messy rookie that isn't a real rookie, you should buy him. And then I'm like, oh, okay. No, I truly, truly love this, right? And that is a big role in why I think the way that I do and why I'm still approaching this market despite, the overwhelming, I guess, negativity that's out there in the greater whole at the moment. And that takes me to another point, which is I think the flip mentality is dead in the hobby. The sort of Gary Vee, garage sale flipping type of thing, right? I think that it's dying because at this point, during a down market, if you don't like this stuff, if you're truly not into this type of stuff, if you truly don't love it, you're not going to take part in it. There's plenty of other places to go with your time and money and effort and all that stuff. You don't need to be doing that. So I do think at this point, the flip mentality of I'm going to buy this thing off eBay and sell it next week for more is, by the wayside. And that's not to say that you can't flip. I actually do think that in a healthy market, there is flipping. There's nothing inherently wrong with that. It's just whenever there's too many flippers, like there was at one point in the market, that's when you start to see the, imbalance and the highs and the lows that can happen. When a lot of American influence comes into the soccer space and starts buying up Grails for really high prices, when collectors really can't attain that at that price, well, it's going to, go up artificially. And then when the collectors aren't there, well, it's going to have to come back down, right? And that's what we've been seeing. In a market like this, the investors and really the flippers are what can take you to that next level. But then at the same time, whenever you're in the downtrodden market that we are now, the collectors are what are going to keep you there. So this is really the two different cycles that I guess we've seen, or the two different edges of the cycle. Now, the next reason I am still buying Grails during this time is something I combine together because I feel like they're very much hand in hand in this situation, and that is dollar cost averaging and consolidation. So first off, dollar cost averaging, you likely know what this means. This is more of an investment term. You could also call it an allowance if you wanted to make it less investment-y and more just enjoyable fun money. Whatever you want to go about, that's up to you. But basically, it's the idea of every week, every month, every so often, you have a certain amount of money that you put into cards in whatever fashion you go about that, whether it be ripping packs or buying an item and keeping it for a long time or just collecting a player, whatever it is. Dollar cost averaging, if you do this, if you put in money into something every month, I'm sure many of you guys have had piggy banks, you know how that works. You put in a little bit, and over a long time, once you open it up, there's a ton of money that you barely even knew you had, right? So the same thing happens in the hobby, whether you really mean to or not. Even if you're just someone that's sort of casually doing this, over time you will get more and more and more cards, and unless you're selling them at the same time, well, you're going to end up with a bunch that kind of could be a big one. And that's where consolidation comes in. And you should be, and I do this all the time, consolidation is something that does not stop in a high or a low market. It continues all the time, in my opinion, because just because the market is high or low, everything else within that market is all still comparable, right? The market itself, the ocean is going up and down, but still, there are different points that you can spot out within that ocean that are relatively good or bad buys. Like when the soccer card market was as high as it was, there are still things that you could have bought then that have held up really well. While when the soccer card market roared, also on the other end, you could have bought something that didn't move at all because maybe it was too common and you didn't know that, right? So there are different ways to approach a market all the time, and you should always be trying to be better in that regard and trying to get better cards, better items if you are trying to optimize the way you go through the hobby. So it's pretty simple to see how this will eventually lead to getting Grails, right? Slowly but surely, piece by piece, as you start to build that up, eventually you can trade that all in for something bigger and you can keep on moving down that collecting road. Something that's really helped me consolidate is the confidence in my buys, right? At this point, I've been really heavily in the soccer card market for at least 2 years. I've been a part of it for closing in on 3. So at this point, I feel like, I have a lot more knowledge, certainly, than I did when I got into it, infinitely more. Like, I can look at so many different cards and have takes on them and have beliefs and have opinions, and it's amazing, right? And with that comes confidence in what you are buying, right? Whenever I first got into soccer cards, I didn't know what I was buying, right? We'll start and we'll go down kind of a list of a few different cards that I've owned over my time. So this was one of my first somewhat big cards in the hobby, was this Zlatan 2002. That was a PSA 9 sticker that I had bought at the time for about $100. I think it was a little more than that, which, if I'm being honest, looking back on it now, it's not a good buy because the 2002, and I guess most of the World Cup stickers, unless you go really far back, are pretty plentiful. So if it's not a 10, it's really not going to be rare. So not a great buy, especially when you consider that I bought this 2 to 2.5 years ago. And at that time, it was probably worth more than it is now. And while you might say, well, the markets have gone down, the soccer card market's actually held up really well. And a lot of the truly, desirable pieces have done good over that same time frame, while this one's gone down in price. So it certainly wasn't a great buy. And it's one that I look back on and you're just like, yeah, the simple mistakes you make when you enter. It happens. As we go, they won't be as bad of buys. Eventually, I found out about Messi rookie cards, and I bought the Money Chromo. The Money Chromo is a great card, but in my opinion, it's not one of the better Messi cards. But at the time, I like the borders, and I really do like the style of the cards, so I was just happy to get something. From there, I go on to learn about how there is a distinction between the Catalan and the Spanish version of the Messi rookie cards, and that was pretty alluring to me. So then I started focusing on the Campeos. I sold off a lot of my Campeones. I moved into something that was better, right? I'm consolidating. Even if I'm just consolidating sideways or even just a little up, I'm happy to make that move, right? After that, we start delving back into vintage. I've been buying in the last, 6 to 9 months, I've been buying a lot of, Maradona, Cruyff, that type of stuff, because they are greats of the game, in my opinion. I mean, in everyone's opinion, certainly. So the fact that I can still attain them is amazing, and I'm more than happy to learn and keep getting into their market. And then beyond that, we end up with one of the Grails that I recently got. I'll move my head over just a bit, but that is a Ronaldo sticker. So essentially, we go from, buying a mass-produced World Cup sticker to buying one of the rarest stickers of a GOAT in soccer. And that's not to say that I can't get better at these buys. In 5-10 more years, there's going to be other pictures on the screen down the line that are better than what I was doing now. And that is, the process of getting better. But at least for me, I have a lot of confidence in my buys at the moment because I've really honed in on sort of the greats of the greats, right? I'm someone that I don't want to get, bogged down and like looking at the 50th best player and trying to rationalize why his market could do good. I just want to find the best pieces of the best players and really identify why they are worth what they're worth, what maybe could be different, what factors could change. So it's been a ton of fun for me. And with that time and that knowledge and the learning, you just become more and more confident in what you can attain, right? And I'd recommend this to anyone that's entering this market. When you're starting out, don't buy expensive things. Like this Lawton I got, I would have recommended myself, instead of buying that, go buy, like a $3 Kevin De Bruyne sticker from some year. And eventually, through buying that Kevin De Bruyne, you will realize the same thing that I realized with my Zlatan without having to spend as much money, right? You can realize a lot of the things for very cheap, and then you can start to build yourself up. And this is how you should go about it, right? And this goes into my next point really, really well. And that is that time is super important, and it is very corny. But the reason that time is so important is because, one, you can see market cycles, right? You can see it go up, you can see it go down, and you can see it go up and down and up, and whatever happens, once you've seen it, you kind of know what it looks like, you know what to expect, right? I got in really, really early on soccer cards, at least relative to the majority of people. And so I've seen the market go from basically nothing to something really cool, to something amazing, to something now that's really cool, back to something, and then kind of like teetering, right? And so you see the growth, the lulls, and then you kind of get the perspective of where we are, right? Because if you're someone that just got into this a year and a half ago or anything less than that, the only thing you know in this market in terms of what these things do is they just go down in price. And that is not the case. However, the opposite holds true, where if you would have gotten in 3 years ago to a year and a half ago, in that time frame, you probably only thought things went up. So there's both sides of the coin, and we're learning that and we're seeing that. But having time in this market, you can see where things went, where they are now, where they were back in the day, and you can have that comparison and that knowledge that maybe someone that's just getting into this doesn't have. And through time, you just get a lot more knowledge. I mean, really, that's what I'm kind of referencing here, but you learn so much more. The gift and the curse with soccer cards is that it is really, really difficult to learn. So having knowledge and being able to constantly sharpen your knowledge whenever you're in the soccer card market is super important. and can really help you during a time like this. Because in a market where everything's down, you have to be willing to go out on a limb, or you have to just be willing to find what is maybe going to turn first, right? What is actually somewhat rare and is going to have more demand than supply. I mean, that's what it ultimately comes back to, right? Can you identify those things? And that takes knowledge, that takes time, that just takes knowing of the market generally. And then the last reason I feel confident in buying Grails during a down market is I have a healthy amount of FOMO when it comes to soccer cards. And what I mean by that is when the market was booming, when it was going through the, euphoric cycle that it was, you have this FOMO amongst people where it's a fear of missing out. They don't want to miss what's going to be the next big thing. They don't want to miss everyone going to the moon, right? And it's good to talk about that because there is that going on, and the people that we're talking about that were obviously right. And so when the market goes back down, you never have to talk about FOMO when the market's going down, because every single day people assume that the price is less than the day before, so there's no fear, right? But for me, with soccer cards, there is a little bit of fear, at least in my opinion, because I lived through a segment in time where I couldn't attain these. So there is that FOMO in me. Now, will that exist for everyone else? I do not know. James Cards FC did a good video recently talking about why he loves vintage and pre-modern soccer cards, essentially just comparing the populations of some of the older cards to anything new, and even some of the other sports. He's done some good videos on populations and stuff like that lately, but a lot of the conclusions that you can come to, and I mean, we talk about this all the time. I think everyone in soccer generally talks about this, is that there's so few soccer cards compared to other sports, right? And knowing the demand potential for soccer cards, that just offers a ton of opportunity and a really wide spread of how this could go down, right? But what I know right now is that soccer collecting is extremely, extremely, extremely niche. No matter how much we're all kind of caught in our own bubble, it's still extremely niche. So for me, I do have a little bit of a fear of missing out, because I know the market's not there now, but looking at the pops of some of the biggest, players in the game and their rookies, like if you had money, you could buy it out. And that's insane to think about. And realistically, it's not going to happen. I'm not saying, we got to go out and buy these because someone's going to buy them out. But what I'm saying is that can't be realistic at some point if the hobby does start to catch on. People can't just go out and do that, because if you look around at other hobbies, that's not really how that works. Like, things price out to a point where that becomes unrealistic. But what I'm saying is, if that's even a possibility for some of the greats of soccer all time, I don't really see that with any other player's market in sports, right? At least the bigger players. Like, no, you can't come in and buy out the Mahomes rookie market, right? There's just no way. You can't do that with like any of the new players, like any of the GOATs in many other sports. But with some of these guys, I think it could kind of be possible, which is just so beyond belief. It's crazy to me. But that's why I have a healthy amount of FOMO, because in my opinion, I do worry about it a little bit. I think maybe some of these things I won't be able to get in the future at the price I can now, and I think most people would agree if you believe in the soccer card market long term, like I do. Hence why I have some healthy FOMO. But that is going to be it for the video today. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, make sure to leave a like. I'll be posting a couple of the Grails that I've gotten back recently over on my Instagram here soon. So if you don't follow that already, check out the links down below in the description. But that is going to be it for me. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, make sure to leave a like. If you have anything you want to tell me, I would love to hear it down below in a comment. And make sure to subscribe if you want to see more videos like this as soon as I go live. But with that said, hopefully you have a wonderful day, and peace.